Let me get a heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check, heat. Can I get a heat check, 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 heat check. Let me get a heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check.
What's up, SML? Bomber and I here. That means you know what time it is. It's season 1 of Madden 23. It's SML season 50, and it's the playoffs. Bomber, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, excited to be here. We just saw the Dan QP finish, and I think that's a good opening game to get us into these playoffs.
Yeah, we had a couple good Week 18 matchups. That was a really fun game to wrap up the regular season. And then we've got a great playoff bracket coming up. This should be kind of a fun first playoff race here in Madden 23.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And so we might as well just jump right into our picks. And we got the bracket here. Where do you want to start this time? Do you want to start in the AFC or the NFC?
We're both AFC guys. So let's give
right.
some love to the less superior conference and start in the NFC, and then we'll talk about the big boys after.
All right, sounds good. I didn't even think of that. We're on the same side this time and make it a little more difficult for the picks, but we'll try and agree on them as best we can, at least who to move forward. So the first one we got Meats against Dom. I'm not really sold on Meats, mostly because I beat him with the Jets. If I beat you with the Jets, I'm not sold on your team. And Meats, not a guy that I'm sold on, especially it seems like most of his offense is the quick passes, and I think Dom is really good at taking away stuff like that. Dom's not a guy that turns the ball over a lot, and that's going to be a problem for Meats because I think he will turn it over, even with Aaron Rodgers. I'm going with Dom in the upset in this one.
Yeah, this is this is a great first matchup. I can't wait to see this game. This is obviously the last time we saw these two in the playoffs was the infamous Lamar Wood game, I believe.
Yep.
With that Super Moss in overtime. So these guys have a little bit of history. Anytime we're talking about Meats in the playoffs as a high seed, you know the narrative, you know the potential, and I think this is a really bad draw for him. Like you said, I think Dom is a good matchup for how Meats likes to play offense, which is streak or drag. The Saints are no joke in season 1 with the talent on that defense. Cam Jordan can get to the quarterback. Yeah, I definitely can see. I guess it feels kind of weird calling it an upset, but by the standings it is. But I definitely can see Dom coming out of this one as the winner.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the two players, if you say Dom versus Meats and you take away whatever teams they have, I think 10 out of 10 I'm taking Dom. We saw him dominate Meats all last cycle. Dom's starting to play better with the Saints as he's getting more used to the game. I just think it's like you said, it's not even really an upset. It's just kind of things coming back to where they should be. Had Clink not been in the NFC South with that Buccaneers squad, Dom's probably a division winner anyway. It just worked out where he gets the 7th seed.
Yeah, and Dom's a guy with a crazy high career playoff win percentage in the SML. Pretty much kind of the opposite of Meats. As long as Dom gets in, it almost feels like he's a lock to win at least a game or two. Yeah. Obviously, the quarterback thing is going to play a pretty big deal. You've got, super OP Aaron Rodgers against super not OP Jameis Winston. But even with that advantage, I still think you got to lean Dom.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll advance Dom on that one. That makes that easy. So then the next game we have Clink. Let's go right down the NFC. We got Clink and Gouda. Earlier today, I actually picked Gouda thinking he could get the upset here. And then I saw his injury report. Somebody brought up, he's missing Kirk Cousins. He's also missing Danielle Hunter. He's also missing Preston Smith. Basically, anybody that was good on his defense is gone. And I think that's what kind of Gouda made his money on this cycle or this season. And I think that's just going to be too much to overcome with Clink. And I think Clink's going to advance on this one.
Yeah, that's a nightmare scenario for Gouda, especially because you kind of have limited opportunities with this Vikings team. Really sucks to see kind of your first and maybe best season with this roster go down the drain on injuries. It's just going to be an uphill battle, especially with no quarterback to try and throw against that Bucs defense against Clink's user. That's not going to be a good time with a backup. He's going to have to rely a ton on Dalvin Cook, but this is going up against a team that has Vita Vea on the line. They've got Devin White. They've got Levante David. The odds just aren't in his favor. If there's one thing that is in his favor, it's that Clink will be coming off of traveling home. So he hasn't touched the game in a little bit. He'll be coming off possibly a flight that day. That's not easy to play in. I've done that before, and it's really hard. Klink's offense is already bad as it is, and that's not going to help. So that gives Gouda kind of a window, a little bit of hope. But I think the odds are just a little too stacked up against him here. Got to go Bucks.
Yeah, and I think Gouda has somewhat of an advantage built in that with Cousins out, I think he'll lean more on Cook, which is what I think he needs to do to win. The problem is you now have to rely on Cook. It's not just lean on him.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to hold him back. But
he becomes less of a luxury and more just of you just got to pound the rock.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. We'll move Klink forward on that one, and then our next game and the last one of the NFC wild card is going to be Woods against Dan. I'll just say, does anybody think Dan loses to Woods? Is there even a chance Woods wins this game?
There's not. I feel bad. I feel like Woods he always finds his way in these divisions. He wins them. He goes to the playoffs, and then he plays like Prime or you or Dan every single time. I would love to see him just draw another matchup than a Big Five member in the first round, but he just can't seem to do it. I don't know if that's a blessing, if that's a curse. I don't know what it is, but the poor guy. I love him. Glad he's in there. Should be a good time.
It's a shame for him. He could, if he could just get someone else to win that division, and then he gets the wild card, he'd be okay. But
seriously, just anything, man. Anything to try and avoid one of these guys.
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be cycle long. I mean, you got to imagine Dan and QP are going to be the 5 seed. One of those two every season. All right.
Yeah, so Woods has either got to get himself the 3 seed, or he's just got to lose the division and win a wild card. This is crazy.
Which is tough. I mean, I guess you have Gouda in there right now, who maybe is the one guy that I see out of this group that I don't expect to repeat every season. But Meats, Dom, Dan, or QP, you got to think every season it's going to be those 3, and then maybe you throw in a Monty, a Dump. I mean, there's limited spots, and I don't know if he wants to lose that division and give up that one free spot.
Right. Yeah. You really can't take that chance.
Yep. All right. So with that means our 5 seed advances, our 3 seed, they'll play each other, and then our 7 and our 1. So we'll say QP against Dom. This is one. It was a rivalry last year. They met in the playoffs a couple times. Raiders, Ravens, and very familiar with each other. It seems like it was pretty much a split. I think this time I go with QP. He's playing better. Clearly Dom got the 7 seed, so he is playing better as of late, but I think QP is playing quite a bit better than he is right now. I mean, we just saw him beat Dan by multiple scores. I'm going to go with QP in this one, but I think it's close. I think it does. Just the familiarity between the two, I think, is going to play a factor here, and the Cardinals are going to squeak by.
Yeah, these guys played in Week 7. QP won that game 20-15. So we know, like you said, the history. Dom knows how to play him. This will not be their first playoff game. Certainly won't be their first playoff game this cycle, or won't be their last playoff game this cycle. Should be a good one, but I think this is where the team advantage is going to hurt Dom. I think he can overcome it against Meats, but when you're playing somebody as solid as Q, when Q is also going to have the better quarterback in Kyler, he's got better weapons. I think that's just going to be a little too much. I think this is where Winston hurts Dom, and that's the end of the road for the Saints.
Okay, so we agree on that one as well. And then we have Klink against Dan. This one I think is a tough one. Dan, I'm not sold on his offense. It looks like Deebo Samuel avoided any major injury, so he will have him back. Got to imagine he'll probably lose Kittle in round 1, though, just from his luck.
As is tradition.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. This one, I think I'm going to give the advantage to Dan. I think he beat him pretty badly the last time they met up just a couple weeks ago. And it sounded like he was in Klink's head pretty firmly. Klink was mostly complaining about Dan, not even really paying attention, I think, once it got going. So it probably snowballed a little more. What I'm worried about for Klink is that may happen again. If Dan gets an early start, we could start seeing that snowball again, and I think he'll have trouble. But if he can keep his head in it, I think he's got the better team to win this. I mean, that defense, like you listed earlier, is absolutely stacked. But I'm going to give Dan the advantage here, and I'm going to go with the 49ers.
Yeah, it was a pretty ugly showing. Week 14, Dan won that one 34-10. Outgained Klink 306 to 101. Klink only had 52 passing yards in this game. It was pretty bad. 3 picks with Brady. And yeah, I mean, this is one of those guys. Dan's just kind of in Klink's head. Klink plays him very well, but Klink
Yeah.
usually kind of unravels towards the end. Dan throws a couple of the dump offs to Barkley and to a tight end, and Klink starts raging. I don't love that Klink will have only played one game
Yeah, that too.
in the past week. I just think that vacation comes at a very poor time for him when he already has an offense that hasn't been great. And I just don't see Dan making enough mistakes to keep Klink in this one long enough to do any damage here. So I got to go Dan with you.
All right, so that sets up an NFC Championship game that is a repeat of the game we just finished watching.
Yep.
QP Dan, round 3, QP with a 2-0 lead in that series. Do you see it going a different way?
I actually kind of do. I don't love that. That regular season sweep makes it tough in the in the playoffs, especially when you're playing Dan. Dan is a guy that makes his adjustments. I feel like that game was a lot of deep balls, a lot of deep shots. Dan made a couple mistakes, but nothing super crazy. I think you get a playoff game here. Dan kind of tightens it up. I like his chances to make a run in season 1 before the teams are fully developed. The Niners start out pretty dang stacked and a little bit better on defense than the Cardinals in season 1, I think is where it makes the difference. Playoff games usually a little more defensive. You don't take as many of those big shots if you're Q. Yeah, it's tough to go against my boy here. I love me some QP. But I think the NFC season 1 runs through Dan.
Yeah, I think I agree with you saying the 49ers have the better defense. I think QP has the better 2 players or more impact players. Bosa, obviously, with the pass rush is good, but I think you can get a pass rush out of most guys. I think you look at RD, he's got 14.5 sacks out of Carl Lawson. I'm not sure how much Bosa is better than that. In fact, I don't think he's got more sacks than that. QP has the two defenders, especially that he can use, are in Budda Baker and Isaiah Simmons. And we saw Dan says he led the guy upfield, and that's why he got picked. He got picked because he thought Isaiah Simmons was taking off, and he came back and got it. He got baited.
Yeah.
And that's what that change of direction, that speed is going to give QP. And I think QP is going to take it. I think he does take a third one in a row. If they played in the Super Bowl a week after Dan gets his dev bumps, when I'm sure he gets Barkley to superstar and Trey Lance to superstar and all these things, maybe it turns out different. But because it's in the NFC Championship before that, I'm going to go with QP. And since we're only going with one different there, I think we can probably just give our predictions for if either one of them make it when we get to the
that works for
Super
me.
Bowl. All right.
I think the big thing in that game is going to be the Cardinals front. Dan's going to slow the game down. He's going to run the ball. We're going to see a ton of Barkley. I don't know if the Cardinals front is built to stop that in a playoff game. However, it certainly helps to have Roquan Smith running around. So
I don't think we're going to see the same Dan we saw just this week because playoff Dan and Dan, week 18 with those dev bumps on the line, Barkley's in line for one, like I said, Trey Lance, he couldn't afford to fall back too far either. So we may have seen him kind of pushing for that, and maybe that's why things got out of control. I don't expect to see a ton of airing it out in the playoffs.
No.
I don't know.
Real quick side note, just because I'm looking at Neon, did you know that Two-Step was second in the league in rushing with Zamir White?
I did know that, yeah. I did know that only because I have Breece Hall, and I was trying to make sure I could see who was near me, and I did see that.
This is the first I'm seeing that, and I'm like blown away by this. 1,600 yards was Zamir White.
Yeah, he had a 200 or 300 yard game not too long ago.
Jeez.
Yeah, he picked it up really late with him and started going crazy. All right, so going to the AFC, we've got Prime at the 1 seed, Matt and RD, me and QB, and then Bean and you. We'll start at the top with Matt and RD. RD coming off 2 huge losses. I mean, he's just been blown out the last 2 weeks. I think this is week 3 of being blown out. That Texans team, not good. That Chargers team, probably the best team. Texans might be the worst team. So we've got 2 polar opposites just in rosters. And Matt, despite all his trying to say he's not good, is at the very least a playoff team. You've made a Super Bowl. You made the playoffs last cycle, at least half the season or half the cycle, almost half the cycle with the Jaguars. It's not like you had a stacked team like you have this year. So being surprised to make the playoffs is a joke. Like I said, this is a guy that made the Super Bowl. When you're looking at this, what do we have? 16 teams. I can probably count maybe what, 5, 6 guys that have made the Super Bowl, not counting Matt.
Yep.
Maybe it's a little more. I forgot. Well, no, Dump made one, but he's not in there. So, you can't be surprised to make the playoffs as the Chargers. And I think in this one, despite all his best efforts to say he's bad, is gonna once again have to fight that battle in chat, because I think he's gonna blow RD out. I think just the roster is too different. Matt doesn't have to control Bosa or Mac. They're just gonna do what they do, which is cause problems for everybody else.
Yeah, this guy Matt is crazy. He out here telling us how bad he is. He's the 2 seed in the AFC at 13-4. I don't want to hear it. You're bad.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. These guys played in week 4. Matt won that one 28-17. I see a similar game. I don't think this is going to be a blowout. RD plays a good style for playoff football. And I mean, RD is a good player. He'll tell you he's bad too, but he's not. His team is genuinely awful. And that's what's going to be what does him in, like you said. I just can't imagine lining up with the Texans and with their offensive line and knowing that RD wants to run the ball and just running straight at Bosa and Mac and thinking anything good's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then he's got to drop back and pass with Mills, who just fires the ball to God knows where when he's under pressure, which is going to be all game.
Which is
this is just
Asante Samuel.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting somebody at another corner.
J.C. Jackson.
Yeah, J.C. Jackson.
James.
That's right. And Derwin James. So an acrobat, Derwin James. Like there's no good options here for RD. I think he's just
no. There's no good options at all. I think RD's too good a player to get blown out on a big stage like this. But it's just this is a mountain to climb. If he wins this one, I might actually get on board with saying Matt's bad, because this would be a tragic loss for the Chargers.
Yeah, it'd be tough. You could almost put the controller down and let the computer play, and RD's going to have a tough time with that team.
You really could. It's this is just, it's kind of a landslide of ratings.
Yeah. I do want to go back and correct myself on something, though. I said there's probably only like 6. There's actually 6 Super Bowl teams in the AFC, 10 total. A lot more Super Bowl teams than I thought there were.
It's a much bigger number than I would have expected.
Yeah, the only
yeah, because I guess I wasn't considering, like, Dom's made a Super Bowl.
Yeah, Dom's made one. Meats made one, and then you have QP and Dan.
That's funny, I always forget about that.
Yeah, so you have 4 in the NFC, and then in the AFC, the only team that hasn't is Bean.
Wow.
So there are more than I thought, but still, to be the 2nd seed in a conference that has, 6 former Super Bowl teams, and I may even be forgetting somebody that didn't make the playoffs. I don't know, but so he still can't say he's bad. That'll bring us to the Jets and the Broncos getting ready to play here. And when we played last time, he beat me. I think it was like 31-21, threw 4 picks. The problem is I don't see that changing too much. So I'm actually going to pick QB in this one. He's playing really well. Picked me apart through the air. Couldn't run the ball, but through the air he got pretty much whatever he wanted. So I'm actually going to go with QB in this one.
Yeah, I'm not going to go with QB in this one. So you and I played recently, and that was the best I've seen your offense in, I think, any of the games we've ever played.
Yeah, they have gotten
yeah, your offense is really taking a step up. You're passing the ball better. You're running the ball like crazy. You led the league in rushing. I have a pretty solid rush defense with this Jags team, and you just ran over them.
I do attribute some of that to the fatigue factor, which was absolutely awful.
Yeah, that was really bad. Nobody could move.
Yeah.
So that definitely played a factor. But then also, like, QB doesn't have a rush defense. I played QB in week 7, I think it was. I couldn't run the ball in week 7 at all, and I ran all over him. So yeah, I don't think the matchup is great for him. I think he does have the better team, but his offense is predictable and pretty boring. I think you're going to get on top of that. Think you're going to run the ball well, and as long as you pass the ball like you have been the past few weeks, think you're going to be totally fine.
All right, I changed my pick. I guarantee a win over QB. Calling
It
it now.
guarantees a
Guarantee
win. That's what we're looking for.
There we go. All right. So next up is Bean versus you. This one I think is very similar to the Woods versus Dan matchup. Bean's been playing a little better recently, but you talk about that layoff that Clink had. Bean's had a complete PlayStation shutdown for 7 days, so I think he's just going to have too much difficulty stopping your offense, which I thought was already pretty tough to stop, let alone having the Bengals. And I think as long as you stay away from Daxton Hill, which seems to be the guy that changes the game for him. I think he's got like 12 interceptions. He's already the superstar, going to be X factor after the season. He's like a 21-year-old. Switched him to strong safety earlier in the year, putting him opposite Bates. Is going to make for a tough secondary, but I think you'll be able to exploit the corners. And then with Evan Ingram, who you've been going nuts with, I don't think he's got a single linebacker that can stay with him. So I'm gonna say the Jaguars win this one fairly easily.
Wow, I'm really glad you brought up Daxton Hill. I've never heard of this dude, and
yeah, he's their I think he was their first round pick rookie.
I went to Michigan.
And he's a Michigan. Yeah, I was gonna say, and he's a Michigan guy.
Yeah, shows how much of the names I know. Jeez, I just see a bunch of numbers out in college. Yeah, 93 speed. All right, that guy's pretty good. So that's a good note to have. Yeah, I'm more worried about Burrow and Chase and Mixon. But the thing with Beans is that you can usually count on a mistake or two in the playoffs, usually in the fourth quarter. I'm kind of counting on that. I feel more comfortable with the game. I feel like I'm playing pretty well right now. At least certainly better than I was, which was not a super high bar. But yeah, I'm going to take myself. So.
All right, good. I like that. Yeah. He isn't actually even using Chase
I can give
much.
you all the science you want, but realistically, it's just going to come down to I'm going to take me for a while.
All right. So we talked about third-time matchups and guys going starting 2-0 and maybe going 3-0. We've got you versus Prime.
Yeah.
Prime, I don't know if you heard, but he's going for 20-0.
Really? That's crazy. You'd think I would have heard about that more, actually.
Haven't heard anything about it, but I'm sure we won't hear anything about it after this week because I've actually got you beating him. Like you talked about with Dan and QP, that 3-0 against somebody is tough.
Yeah.
And I think you've been playing a lot better recently. You've got more time with the game, more time not throwing freeform all over the place, just seeing what you could do with it. And I think Prime coming in here 17-0. I think he's going to get a little too complacent. Like I said, he's maybe mentioned it once or twice in chat that he's undefeated. He's already probably printed up post Super Bowl party flyers and all kinds of stuff. And I don't think he even gets one playoff win. I think you beat him here.
That would be wild. Yeah, this is going to be a fun game. I've been looking forward to playing him again. Obviously, we played early in the season, and it didn't go great for me, as he's mentioned once or twice, maybe 3 times. The thing with Prime, though, he has not played anybody this year. Obviously, like I said, played me early, but the rest of the schedule is a train wreck. RD is probably the next best person he played. I guess you can count Matt, but we all know what happens in those games. I don't care what the final score says; that they're never in doubt. But I mean, this schedule, we got Tiny on here, we got Gouda, we got Grams, we got Colt, Woods, Two Step, Figs, Doink. I mean, these are all just. I think maybe the second best person he played is QB in week 5. And that was a 4-point game. So Prime's had a very light go of things, which is probably why he's hyping up the undefeated season as much as he has. He doesn't want you to look at that. It'll be fun. I certainly like the way I'm playing now a lot more than the way I was playing the last time we faced. I still don't know that the Jags are ready. Offensive line, it's going to come down to the pressure. He's killed me on pressure in both games early. Just, Pay and Buckner just obliterating my poor offensive lineman. So that's going to be the big issue. But you know what? Heat check special. We're not playing it safe here. I'm going to win the game.
All right. So that makes that easy. We advance you to the AFC Championship. So that puts me against Matt, and I think it comes down to the similar thing. It's going to be the Jets against the Chargers. My offensive line has been horrible, and now I lost my center for 6 weeks, so he's done. I think I've already taken almost 60 sacks. It's an insane number. I think it's the highest in the league. I think that the team is going to be tough. I think this is a good matchup because I think Matt's offense is probably his weak spot. The problem is Matt's already a really good defensive player, and now you've given him the Chargers, which is one of the better defenses. So I think I could probably slow down his offense to the point where he only scores maybe 2 or 3 field goals and keep him out of the end zone. The problem is I don't know if I could score 10 points on him the way I've been playing this year. So I got to go with the Chargers in this one.
Yeah, it's struggling against a pass rush and then having to play the Chargers is not where you want to be.
Yeah.
You had the 2-score lead on me, and the whole game changed on the sack fumble. I can see something similar happening here. And I mean, Bosa and Mac especially, like that guy is just a Madden. I mean, he's a real life freak show, but he's a Madden freak show especially. The animations he gets, he has edge threat. He just obliterates tackles. He's in the backfield faster than anything, and even if you get the throw off, it's usually directly at a defender. It feels kind of crazy taking him over you, but I think you've got a point.
Yeah, and Mac is leading the league in sacks, so it's not like he's just
and tackles for loss, so you can't even run on him.
So he is he's performing, whereas other guys may have big name guys that they're big names, but they're not doing a ton. He's actually living up to his ratings, and it's a problem. So that's going to make you and Matt in the AFC Championship. I think the offensive line is going to be a problem for you as well. But I think your offense overall is a lot better than mine, and I think that's going to allow you to beat Matt. I think it'll be a close one. I think his defense is still really good, but I think you're going to end up squeaking by him.
Yeah, I'm definitely not excited about that potential matchup. Similar issue as you. My tackles can get just absolutely bullied. My interior guys can get bullied. They can all get bullied. It's pretty ugly out there. That's not the team you want to do it against. Matt historically has had a ton of success against me. The only time we've met in the playoffs was the Super Bowl, which I did win. But he's won every other matchup that we've played, including the Cosmos deciding that I'm going to go on vacation instead of playing him this season. So I lost that game too. Mm-hmm. I don't have a lot of success against Matt. He'll have a massive team advantage here on both sides of the ball. I would love to pick myself. I still might pick myself just because it's more fun. But I feel like he should probably win this one.
All right, so we'll pick you. Gotta have that confidence, cool. Right? Plus, it makes this easy for the Super Bowl. All right, so we've got you taking on either Dan or QP. Matt gets to push his Big Five narrative for another season. Which one do you want to see? If you got to play one, which one would you rather play?
You, because I think I'm in his head a little more.
Okay, I buy that. After last cycle, I don't know.
I think Q's the better player, but I think that there's past. I think I get a sack early in the game, and he starts immediately seeing Brian Burns again.
Okay, all right. So we'll say you against QP. I think that one's going to be tough. I think you probably are in his head, but I think, man, I don't know. That secondary is so good. He's been really good with Baker and Isaiah Simmons. I'm gonna give you the win in that one though. I think between Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, as long as he stays healthy, and then Evan Ingram, I think you're gonna end up pulling that one out. And like you said, you're kind of in his head.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that I'm ready in season one for a Super Bowl just yet. I will say that I think regardless of who makes it out of the AFC, I think the NFC wins season one Super Bowl. Okay. I think either Dan or Q is going to get this. I think they're both playing very good football. I think overall they're playing better than any of us in the AFC as a whole. I think they do have the team advantages over everybody but Matt. But then, of course, they're better players than Matt. So I think that all stacks up. I'm not sure if the Jags season one or honestly, if I were to make it to the Super Bowl, I would think it's way overachieving with the offensive line issues I have. So I think regardless of who I play or who I would play, I think I'd lose. I think my chances are slightly better against Q, but I think I'm picking the NFC regardless of the matchup here.
Okay, yeah, I can agree with that. Dan's offense is going to be frustrating to play against.
Yeah.
Barkley with his check downs and just running is going to be frustrating, I'm sure.
And he'll be superstar in that game.
Yeah, and again, he does have he's got Bosa and he's got a good defensive front seven that are going to cause problems. It is interesting that when you look at it, until you said something, I didn't even really kind of realize it, that the AFC, it's none of the top teams really, other than the Chargers and maybe the Bengals in there. You could argue they're one of the better teams, but no Browns, no Ravens, no Bills, no Chiefs. None of the top teams really made it because none of the top guys took the good teams.
Yeah. The AFC certainly starts out with more time needed to kind of develop the rosters up a little bit. The NFC, I think, took a little more of the ready squads. The Bucks, the Cardinals, the Niners are all teams you would have expected to make a season one run. The Jets, Jaguars, and Colts are not exactly on the same level.
Yeah, and Texans. We got the Texans in the playoffs.
Yeah, and the Texans. We get the Texans in there.
So it'll be a definite team advantage for whoever makes it out of the NFC, unless Matt makes it.
Yeah.
But all right, so that's our playoff bracket. Do we want to do our pressure? Do we even have enough pressure yet? Or I think
there's one team that has enough pressure. So yeah,
quite a
let's
bit
do
of
it.
pressure. Okay, let's just go ahead and start with the number 1 seed Colts. What do you think for how many folding
10 out of
chairs do
10.
they have? Absolutely a 10 out of 10.
Nobody should have a 10 out of 10 this early, but Prime has done it to himself. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. I'm honestly looking at the rest of the teams. I don't even know that there's anybody else with a ton of pressure. We can go through them. We'll go through them. Matt, I think maybe 4 for him. He can talk about how bad he is, but he still has the best team by far. So it's a little bit of pressure there.
Yeah, best team, a top probably 3 quarterback in the game. That's generally, with an elite pass rush and an elite quarterback, there's not too much more you can possibly need in Madden 23 to be successful.
Yeah.
And then on
just
top
for
of
the
that,
hell of it, he's got an elite secondary and 2 superstar wide receivers.
Yeah, so he's in a pretty good spot team wise, but he is Matt. He's not in the Big Five. He's only got 1 Super Bowl previously, so he's not a guy that I'd be looking at and be like, yeah, the pressure's off the wall for him. So I think that 4 or 5 is probably realistic.
RD, I think, is sitting at a 1. I don't think even he thought he'd be in the playoffs with the Texans.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's a 0. The fact that he's here is gravy.
Yeah, I don't feel any pressure because I didn't expect to be. I thought I'd make the playoffs because I thought the AFC East was pretty easy. DW, Finns, and Fig. I thought I could at least win that division. So if I can win a playoff game, that'd be great. But I was happy to get this far. QB.
Yeah, I think you and I naturally get a little bit just because you're previous Simbardi guys, Big Five. People expect us to win regardless of team. The team helps alleviate pressure a little bit because Jets and Jaguars. So there's a little bit, but there's not a ton.
Yeah. QB, I think, maybe is a guy that has a little bit more pressure just because of the cycle he had last year. I think it's more pressure to kind of get back to where he was. Doesn't help that Matt's calling him the only guy that can take down Prime. That probably doesn't help. So he gets a little bit more pressure.
Those Matt narratives are something else right now.
Yeah. Bean, I think he's tough because he went all cycle last year just getting stomped by Prime every time he'd make it to the playoffs, and now he draws you, and it looks like it's going to be probably you or Prime every playoff, and maybe RD if he gets that team up to where they can get in the top 2 of the AFC South. But I think there's a little bit of pressure there. Last cycle he had Prime. This cycle he's got one of the X Factor quarterbacks in the Bengals, and everybody's kind of called that division the Weenie Hut Jr. of this cycle, and I think there's a little pressure to get that playoff win under his belt, and knowing that the Jaguars are, as a year one team, aren't as good as they're going to be, this may be one of his only shots to do that. I don't see the Colts getting worse. I don't see the Texans getting worse, or you. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think his big chance will be if he can possibly move up the division winners standing there, because I think Matt's team will naturally regress a little bit. The Bengals are still young; they're going to go up, and his division's so bad that he's going to have a lot of free wins that could really help him, if nothing else, get the 3 seed, which at least gets you out of me in prime territory for round 1. So I think his pressure is more for just that first playoff win. I think that would be a nice monkey off his back. I don't think there's pressure yet for, a trophy.
I'm going to go ahead and make a heat check hot take real quick. We used to do the crazy predictions. I've actually got one.
Yes.
So since this is our first episode of the cycle, I'm gonna go ahead and have a heat check hot take. Bean is going to win every single division title in that AFC North, and not a single playoff game. He's going to go 0 for 8.
Wow. So I was gonna say that your first one, I was like, that's not a crazy hot
not
take.
much of a hot take.
And then the second one, I was like, okay, never mind, I'm with it.
And honestly, I'm not sure that's much of a hot take. That's how confidently I feel he's not going to win one.
If he can get into the 3 seed, he could be okay. Because like he's somebody I can see beating QB, or like he's somebody who could beat RD if the Texans improve. And although that's a pretty big gap, 13-4 to 9-8.
See, I don't think he makes the 3 seed, because he's going to win that division every season, which means he's going to get you or Prime, he's going to get me, and he's going to get QB or Matt every single season automatically.
It's a good point, and that's
and then the top guy from whatever NFC division they end up playing as well. He's
I
gonna have a
didn't think
first-place
about
schedule
that.
every
So
year.
he's probably starting out every season with just about 4 losses locked in.
Yeah. So I almost don't even think that's that much of a hot take. I think we've done worse when we said two-step would make the playoffs, but
that one still hurts me.
it does. All right, so the next up is going to be you, and that'll be our last team on the AFC side. I think it's the same thing. I think it's like 4 or 5, just because you won so many last cycle that it's expected.
Yeah, I'm still sitting on 5 straight appearances, so I guess there's definitely some expectation to get back to number 6. But
if nothing else, just pressure to keep that streak going.
Yeah, it would be a fun streak to keep going. Also, I mean, nothing would make me happier than a win over Prime here. That would be.
Yeah.
I can say that would feel better than the Super Bowl.
There you go. So, speaking of the Super Bowl, one of the teams we had projected to go there, QP on the NFC side, I think, and I'll just lump him and Dan in here. I think they're both a little higher. You went to the NFC, which before the team draft, everybody said was going to be the less talented conference, and it seems to have absolutely shook out that way. And you've got 2 of the better teams in the conference, and then you come out right off the bat, both playing for the 1 seed in your final game. It's 1 or 5. So I think there's quite a bit of pressure to at least get there. You can't have everybody talking about the NFC runs through Dan and QP, and then you don't make it. So I think both those guys are probably right about like a 6 or 7. I don't think they're pressure free right now.
Yeah, QP I think is a little less than Dan. Just he is the most recent success. He went through a pretty dominant run with Baltimore. Possibly the only reason we didn't see him there again in the last season, he went on vacation. So he had 2 straight appearances, I think, 3 straight maybe. I know it was at least 2 straight because we played
2.
back to back. He won 2 last cycle, so he had a lot of success. Dan had the 1 with Atlanta, which was impressive, and then was never heard from again.
Yeah.
He's now got the Niners, so he can't fall back on the Atlanta excuse. He really did not take a rebuilder. This team is ready to roll. I think Dan's probably looking at a 7, and I think Q is probably looking at a 6.
Okay. Then we got Meats. I think Meats is another guy that's probably pretty high. You already have the folding chair. You're the reason this whole segment was named the folding chair. On top of that, you're now the 2 seed. So you're back in that position. Last cycle was he the 6 seed, the 7 seed. Never really expected to do much. He beat me in the first round one season, and that was the playoff upset of the cycle. He long way from being the folding chair. Because with the folding chair, you have to have some type of expectations. And I think now he has those as the 2 seed. And then to kind of compound that, this may be the last time he's the 2 seed, because Aaron Rodgers, if he hangs it up, that team's done. He traded Jordan Love. Has no quarterback plan in place. He's already gone in the trade channel saying he would pay handsomely for a quarterback. I didn't see anybody respond, maybe in DMs, but I don't know anybody that's really selling quarterbacks right now. The draft looks empty. Half the league needs a quarterback, so this may be his one shot. He's got the team to do it. Unfortunately for him, the receivers aren't quite developed yet, so they're gonna hold him back a little bit. But this is it. So I think it's probably around an 8 for him.
Yeah, I was going to give him an 8 as well. This is, like you said, this is really his only chance. Aaron Rodgers retired after season 1 in CML. So, I mean, the precedent's there. We're not just making it up. There's a very real chance that Rodgers goes. And a lot of people would say Rodgers is the only reason that Meats is really even winning games. So if he goes, you're possibly looking at, Paulie will be done tanking, so the division is going to get harder. You go from possibly the 2 seed to maybe not making the playoffs again.
Yeah.
So you got to win this time around.
Yeah.
You got to get at least somewhere. A first round loss would be devastating.
If Rodgers retires, Biz is the only team I see him beating in the AFC or NFC North. Gouda for one more season till he then has everyone retire. And then by the time he has everyone retire, Paulie's probably done tanking because he's had like 6 first round picks that have been in the top 5.
Yep.
So this is probably it. Maybe he gets lucky and Rodgers sticks around, but it doesn't sound likely. The majority of the Sims I did, he left. Dan said he left him after season 1. So definitely some pressure. And another guy that's probably got some pressure is Dom. Seems to really be upset that he's left out of the Big 5, even though he's only made that 1 Super Bowl. Same as Matt, same as Dump. But he seems really upset by it, and at some point he's got to prove it. And he's going up against Meats. If he wins this one, he's going to get QP. So he's got a tough road, but I think there's a little bit of pressure there. Probably a 7.
Yeah, I think a 7 sounds about right. I was going to go with a 6. Just because I'm looking at Jameis Winston, and that's not exactly a guy that I'm like, all right, he can definitely make a run. The defense is there. He's got Kamara. We know he's a good player. Like I said, lots of playoff success in the SML. I don't think the team's quite there yet that I can say he definitely has pressure to make it. We're going to see Dom back. This is not like a Meat scenario where if he doesn't get it this season, he's not going to make it again. He should be there every season of the cycle, honestly. So I don't think it's super high just yet, but, with his history and the amount that he's won without making that many title games, I could definitely see that playing a factor.
All right, so next up is Clink. Talked about plenty how I think he thinks he should be talked about higher than he is, but he's even said he's got to prove it. I think there's a little bit of pressure there because right now he's got the better team, probably the best team in the NFC. And of course, there's our disconnected due to inactivity. Thank you, EA. But he's got the best team in the NFC, I think, by a pretty solid margin. He's basically got the Chargers of the NFC.
Yep.
The only difference is he's got 1 year. Same thing. We're going to see Brady gone. He's already said even if he stays, he's going to just franchise him and trade him. So I think there's a little bit of pressure there between wanting to win and kind of your quarterback is gone after this year. So this is probably the best shot. So I'd put him probably at a 7 as well.
Yeah, I was going to go a tad bit higher. I was going to put him in the same area as Meats. Maybe I'll go 7.5, just under Meats, just because I think Clink will have an easier time getting back. Clink is a good team builder. He will figure out something with the quarterback position. Yeah. And let's be honest, it's not like he's been utilizing Brady to, make this great offense. His offense really has not been good at all. So, he can figure that spot out. But this is his best chance as far as the team on paper. And guys like Shaquille Barrett, the Bucs are not old, but the couple guys they have are obviously in their prime. Similar spot as the Packers, where you would love to make a run with Brady, just because he makes it that much easier with the abilities and the hot routes. So yeah, I'd go 7.5 for Klink.
Okay. Next one is Gouda. I'm gonna put Gouda at like a 2. I don't know if he even knows what's going on half the time. He was trying to trade first round picks for Tannehill and Rodney Hudson, both guys that are, well past 30. I'm not sure what to make of him, but I don't think he feels any pressure at this point. We may have to let him know he's in the playoffs. So I'm going to put it at like a 2. When he finds out that he's in the playoffs, it may jump to a 3.
Yeah, Gouda's pretty low. The last time we saw him in playoffs, he drew me in the first game, and it didn't go great for him. He's gonna go have a better outing than that for sure. He's got a chance at a win. Team is not the best; they're not the worst. I do think he would like to win, a playoff game or two
absolutely.
before some of these guys, the Harrison Smiths, the Eric Kendricks, start to retire. Before he tries to send a pick away for Tannehill or whatever 35-year-old quarterback he can find.
So that's how Klink's getting his quarterback. He's gonna
Yeah,
send him
exactly.
Brady for a first.
Taysom Hill is getting up there in age, who he traded the pick for as well. So
I forgot that one.
yeah, I don't really know. Maybe Taysom Hill's the plan at quarterback.
That's what I was
season.
I was
Maybe
just
I
thinking when you
it.
said Taysom Hill. You know what? Maybe it works out. But yeah,
So Gouda's low. I'm good with the 2.
yeah. And then he's got all the injuries, so there's no real expectation there.
Oh yeah, with all the injuries, he's like a 1.
Yeah. Then we got Woods. Woods coming in on. He's the 4th seed. I'm going to give him a 4. I think kind of like Bean, he wants to finally kind of get a playoff win. He's so many times there, and so few times does he win. So I put him at like a 4, but I don't think he's got really expectations to win either. He's another guy that can't really figure out what he wants to do at quarterback. He had Hurts, then he didn't like that, so he went to Tannehill. I'm sure he's been talking to the Bears about Fields and anybody else that possibly has a quarterback ready to go. So I'm going to put him at a 4 because going up against Dan as the 5 seed, there's not much expectation there.
Yeah, if Woods wins this game, the SML erupts. It's a talking point for like a month and a half.
Yeah.
So generally, anytime you have something like that, you're pretty low on the old folding chair scale. This is a team that will get better, and they will really be dangerous as we get through the cycle. They're not dangerous enough yet that I think he has any kind of pressure on him to, go out and win right now. I was going to put him at a 3.
All right, I can live with that. So that's gonna do it. We've got Dan. We lumped him in with QP. So that's it for our folding chairs for this playoffs. It is 6:46 right now, so I got about an hour and 10 minutes till I got to play QB.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Looking forward to it, and looking forward to getting these playoffs started. I'm excited for our first one, and just to be let down when the draft gets here, and we got to jump through our.
No, we got the draft figured out. We're gonna be okay.
We've got a plan. We'll see if that plan matters, because you never know with EA that we may get to preseason week 4 and end up seeing all those guys in preseason week 1 again. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But this has been Heat Check, guys. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the playoffs.
Yep, we'll see you there. Prime and Dan on the call.
Let me get a heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check, heat. Can I get a heat check, 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 heat check. Let me get a heat check, heat check, heat check, heat check.